A warm welcome to TALKWALK. This is Minoli de Almeida on the psychosocial impact of post-COVID. May I appeal to you once again, keep those masks on. COVID-19 hasn't gone away. Keep your social distance. Let us support the health services and the military who are keeping us safe and stop a second or third wave hitting our country. May God be with you all. A word of thanks to our sponsors, South Asian Technologies, Kaspersky, the Safe Ed app, for kids. With today's episode, we focus on the nutrition pyramid for our nation. Remember, health is wealth. I will talk now to the experts to find out what they have in store for all of you. On our panel today, we have Arya Sili Vikramanayaka, founder chairman of Master Divers, the oldest, most prestigious underwater services and salvage company. Also, Pelwatta Industries and Maubina Lanka Foundation. Welcome, Arya Sili.
Thank you.
Then we have Dr. Shayana Amarasekara, an accredited practicing nutritionist, member of the Australian Society of Medical Research and Nutrition, a senior nutritionist of Navaloka Hospitals, specializes in pediatric nutrition and obesity management. Welcome, Shayana.
Thank you.
Andy Andrews, the man of the moment, the head coach of CrossFit Salon. For those of you who need a trim body, the correct BMI, contact Andy, who will put you into the correct shape, and for you women, the right stats. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks, pleasure.
And we have Visakha Tilakaratna, who is too qualified for this panel. So many qualifications behind her name: a PhD from Imperial College, an MSc Food Technology from King's College, a Berridge Bursary Trust Scholar as an outstanding female student, and a special degree in chemistry too. Welcome, Visakha.
Thank you, Vinali.
Reverting back to Arya Sili, we'll ask him what his take on the correct nutrition is. He advocates homegrown food.
Yeah, if I would say, Lord Buddha has said 70-odd percent are Buddhists. They've been told not to consume a grain that won't produce in your own country. Like say wheat does not grow in this country, and we should not be consuming it. And it doesn't digest with you. That is what Lord Buddha said. I'm of course a Christian, but that's what Lord Buddha said. We all were Buddhists few hundred years back. So I'm saying the food that is around you is what we had when we were kids. We had practically everything in and around the house. So the rice was coming from the paddy field, the cow was giving us milk, vegetables coming from the field, and we were never used to pluck vegetables. If you pluck it in the morning for lunch, the evening you will pluck it for dinner. So that's what we were, and that's how this agriculture economy is this country. Everything is agriculture. We used to export tea, we used to export rubber, we were used to export coconut at the time. And we never loved anything, like say jackfruit or breadfruit or whatever. We used to, excess fruit we were used to preserve and keep it for rainy day. When it rains, I mean, I'm come from Gaul down south, there was a river bringing in flood 2 seasons. Along with the flood, they bring in fertilizer, and the water settles down and it goes down. And then the fertilizer is there for paddy, because 1.5 to 2 months it starts yielding. So you don't need a lot of fertilizer. Cows graze during the off season, then they have cow dung and urine that is there with the cow, and we never imported fertilizer to this country. I'm saying for thousands of years. When the World War ended, the American president called the scholars like Visakha and said, get rid of this gunpowder. There were millions of tons of gunpowder. And then this gunpowder, they came back and said, you put it to wheat, you get 4 times the crop. And then they said, okay, give it. They dumped it in the sea. There are no consumers. They wanted to control the price. They said, no, you can't dump it in the sea. Then they started giving us wheat and imported cow milk with palm oil and all these other ingredients from small countries. We never had cows. And they said, with the independence that we said, you consume bread. And they also were smart to say, you are poor, you can't pay now, pay 30 years later. And then when I was going to school, dollar was below 1 rupee. When I was working in 1977, the dollar was 4 rupees. And during 30 years, dollar went up to 202. And we are paying 202 for that. And then all what we need is we need to consume what we have, and our debts to the world will go, 202 came to 180s now. It should be brought down back to 4 and be possible to down there. Then we are debt-free country. So we are debt-free and with fresh vegetables, fresh milk. I'm not saying you want to consume milk powder. Our cow was giving us milk every morning. So if you don't have the cow, the neighboring house, there was a house that was doing milk as an income for them, and they were used to deliver milk to the house. This happened right across the country, and food saved. Like say, we have 180 different yams in this country, and it was growing. By January, you have to pull it out, those yams, and we can keep it over a period of time and consume. So we never imported food. And then today we became totally imported. Even chilies and onions were imported last year. 90% of it was imported. So country's economy has gone to 202, and our nutrition has gone down to what we are today, is because, this fat man here was 120 pounds many years. We was energetic. I was the fastest swimmer in Sri Lanka, and we were used to swim, do exercises, and couldn't be kept in one place. We were children. We used to run, exercise. We had football in one season at the school, the athletics the next season, then the next season is cricket. So we used to always had exercise. We had always had, and then none of these professors, including you, had the results of the today's young boys have, or girls. For 3 A stars, you have to have 2 days to enter. At my time, when I entered medical college, but I had 2 C's and 2 S's, we had to do 4 subjects. And that was very good results at that time, because science was done in Galle, Colombo and Kandy, maybe Kurunegala. And no one else had science. So I'm saying this is a rich and lovely country. We travel all over. We go for the weekend and run back because we don't want to face the weather that they have. And this is heaven on earth with all the food that you need. When I was a kid, I was given kolakanda, what do you call, kanji with, and we used to have that. Even this morning, I had to have tea and kolakanda. If I'm in Sri Lanka, I always have it. So that is nutrition, and that is what it is. And I can't say much more, but with others to say, this is a country that we had to bring the dollar down by not paying it, but reducing the debts that we have in rupees to 200 to 4 rupees, and then we practically have no debts.
Absolutely. We totally agree with what you're saying. I hope everybody takes it on their selves to be responsible. Grow something, have a little garden in the house. At least 2 veg you can easily grow. Even in a flat you can grow 2 kinds of vegetables.
2 flower pots.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
If you don't have land.
Yes. So let's start from this forum, this talk walk. Let us be the paradigm to try and bring back the old days of fresh food.
And successful, that's not the old way,
yes.
that's the successful economy that we had.
Absolutely.
I mean, long before you all were born. I mean, we have gone through it, we've seen it. And we were never used to borrow from anywhere. They came and dumped milk in this country, they came and dumped wheat in our country, and today we are paying 202 rupees for a dollar, which we never wanted. They checked us and said, hey, you are weak. And you need to be given, and mothers were told, hey, you are weak, take milk, take wheat. And then said, don't pay, you are poor, don't pay now. We were never poor. This is a very rich country. I mean, somebody is, people who have traveled, you know, winter season, there nothing grow, not even leaves on the trees. And they don't have food. They migrated here, they conquered here in Sri Lanka in order to get food from these countries to Europe. And when they didn't have electricity, when they had anything else, they used to, and why do they eat half cooked or raw meat, or why do they? Because energy was not there, heat was not there for cooking. We cook and eat. We used to cook thousands of years. And before that it was fruits and vegetables which are seasoned that we used to eat. So that's what we need. I'm sure Visakha knows about it. We all of us can discuss this. This is our country. We must first get the economy right. And all those who have migrated for various reasons, maybe language issue, maybe the single medium education, whatever that you said, but this is heaven on earth. We none of, I mean, only 13 today, 11 or 13 sick people died. Not corona had never came from here. Tourists brought it. We got it from tourists, and we won't get it because we eat curry powder every day, all 3 meals.
Absolutely. I think we should all be responsible to ward off the corona-19 because we must avert the second and third wave. We cannot take it lightly. So all of us have to be responsible and look after ourselves and the community. And a special thank you to the health services and the military for keeping us safe. Shayana, what have you to add to this, being the doctor here?
Yeah, I mean, going back to the point where you said even if you live in a flat and you don't have that much space, you can still grow some of your own produce. I have 2 sons, and we're in a similar situation as that. And on our balcony, we've got little pot plants that they themselves have grown from the seeds, so they know about that particular herb or that fruit. When it flowers, I get them to come out and pick some of the leaves. Then we might make something with it. I talk to them about what it is, what nutrients it has, why it's important for them to consume it on a regular basis. So it also stems down to a bit of education as well, especially for the younger generation that comes from the parents and also the people who surround the children. And also, unfortunately, sometimes our lifestyle limits that availability of the education, because you do have to make time to educate your children about their intake and their nutritional requirements, what is considered to be a good nutrient source. We don't like to use good foods and bad foods because then puts a positive and a negative connotation with the food. We like to say, okay, you can have that, but maybe have that in a limited quantity, whereas we choose this other food that we like to have on a more regular basis, and this is the reason why. Also, as you mentioned, we have quite a lot of resources. We have fantastic fruits and vegetables here. We need to start going back to using those resources on a regular basis in proper quantities. I think quantity management is also quite important. It has to fit the current lifestyle that we're in at the moment. And if we can do that in an effective manner, I think our younger generations coming through have a lot to look forward to, and we can really, utilize that talent and make sure that they have a healthy future for us.
I think it's a basic educating the parents.
Yes.
So that they impart that knowledge to the kids.
Yes.
Add to Shayana, what she tries to say is that children must be taught from a younger age. The quality of food.
Exactly. I mean, children must be taught to, like say, when we were kids, we were given forcibly, even if we didn't like it, a green leaves mash and ground and make juice out of it, and we have a green leaf kanji. And where is this kanji? I must tell you all, the kanji, you all have never seen this. We were used to boil rice and drain the rice before the rice cooker came in. That is soluble carbohydrate, which is not good for our age. And that energy was loaded and given to children. And you put green leaves and smash and juice to make it tasty. The energy carbohydrate, soluble carbohydrate is given to children. So that's our food. And vegetables were plucked from the garden. Say if you have ash plantains, if you want 2 for the cooking, you just cut 2, and that's our fridge. That was how the plant will carry that, and you just take it off. And today you have to take an electrical fridge and put it in there and then take it out. And then this was sitting there. And what normally a servant will go down and do weeding and put a little bit of water, fertilizer, and pull out whatever that you need, green leaves, ladies' fingers, whatever that you need for the house will be brought in, cooked for the day. Afternoon, after lunch, they'll go and give it back again. And morning breakfast always have been either something made out of rice flour, like hoppers, or some yam that is grown at the backyard, and that was your breakfast. And lunch was something heavy, and then the father always had, when pot of rice is kept on fire, when the father sits for just when he's ready to have lunch, meal. In Sinhalese they say, hingannanta koinda unubat. Because except for beggars, everyone got hot food, because rice was kept in a pot. When the rice was cooked and water was drained off, and it was there. I mean, so that is what it is.
The Western influence.
Yeah, it's Western influence. No, they need. I mean, if you are in a cold country, I mean, when we go out to London, I had gone 8 years up and down with my boys. But when you go there, you get hungry, you want greed for bacon, and you have butter on both sides, and you are oozing out heat, and you need to load carbohydrate, fat. And then you need to, I mean, you come back this way, you never want to even sight it. Because if you don't eat like that, you will die. I mean, that's their food, it's not ours. And if you want to eat that, I mean, you get all the sicknesses in the world, is unheard of. Him is operated for this and heart and the other thing, is because you have been loading fat that is not required here.
On that note, we got to go in for a short commercial break. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to TALKWALK. Thank you for your patience. Today's episode is very interesting. It's on nutrition and keeping fit with exercise and having that trim, nice body. Now we will talk to Andy Andrews, the man at CrossFit, who will help you to stay trim and have that proper stats. Go on, Andrew.
All right, so I mean, listening to the introduction to the whole show, nutrition is a big part of training, right? And if you were to create a pyramid of what's important in terms of getting fit, nutrition's bottom of the pyramid, takes up the biggest space. It's the thing that provides energy. But I mean, we work with a lot of people, right? And people coming from different experiences. Some have been overweight, some have been underweight, some have been really fit and lost it, some are already fit walking in. And one thing that you'll constantly notice is lack of compliance to their diet, or lack of compliance to eating the right foods. And most of that comes from discipline, right? the lack of discipline, and the ability to stay on track, and the ability to commit to a process that you have created. And if compliance is not there, knowing everything or having all the information is almost useless. And so one thing that we try to, even in the smallest micro ways, is try to instill discipline into people's lives in terms of sleep, hydration, tools for recovery, whether it's stretching, massages, ice baths, whatever it is, really, because those things constantly reinforce you to stay on track. And so if you can keep everything in your life on track, you're able to keep one of the components, which is nutrition, on track as well. You lose one or two of these little parts of the web, you start losing everything. And it's very easy to get off track. And so one of the things that I think everyone should take out of not just the nutrition is the practice staying committed, right? Practice on a daily basis, making the right decision and not the easy decision, because it's very easy to make a decision to go down to one of the stores and get a fish bun, right? It's such an easy decision, but then you've got to decide, okay, what do I want to do for my health, and what do I want to do for my future self, for the person that's 10 years down the line? Am I walking towards heart disease, diabetes, or all these different things, or am I walking towards a healthy future? And one of the biggest things are compliance, actually committing to the process on a daily basis with everything. And I think it's important to discuss those things, because you can know all about nutrition, you can know what to eat, you can know what to do, but if the emotional component is huge, being able to actually apply it. Otherwise,
it's a self-discipline you're talking about.
100%. People are emotionally attached to food, and if you're emotionally attached to food, you can't make correct decisions, right? You can't make the right decision when you're hungry, because hunger, I could eat this plant, if I'm hungry, and so you'll eat anything. And so understanding, okay, I shouldn't be eating this, I can wait 45 minutes, go home, make my meal, or if you've meal prepped, eat your meal. And so the emotional component is a huge part of nutrition that is very, very often overlooked. And if people can discipline all components, they can discipline that single component.
Excellent. Well said. Visakha, what have you got to add with all your experience?
Well, I think, we have a very good panel, and I think Aryasila has made our, whole discussion very easy, and I think Shayana has also added to that. Well, talking about early childhood nutrition, I think it's very important, putting in or programming the mind of the child. I think Andy was talking about discipline. Now, the first discipline, as soon as a child is born, is giving breast milk. And we all know, and there is a terrific amount of research on breast is best. Now, keeping in line with, going back to our grandparents' nutrition, giving breast milk in the past was a given. It was internalized. It was not considered unfashionable. And I think one of the main features in our cultural life, in our society, was the extended family. So with the extended family, there were aunts, uncles, everyone in the house, and I think mother found it very easy, having an enabling environment to actually feed the child. Now it's very important to go to also -9 months, because we talk about the first 1,000 days of life, and we even talk about the first 2,000 days. So that is 9 months in the stomach, and then up to 2 years of age if you count the days. Now, programming early childhood nutrition is, I think, very well explained. It was very well explained about the diversity of getting the child used to a number of foods. So religiously 6 months is only breast milk and even no water, because breast milk has so many benefits, from the psychosocial right down to gut health, and growing those healthy bacteria, the prebiotics for probiotics, Now probiotics has become a huge name. It's almost a fad. But in our tradition, breast milk and I think buffalo curd are the two substrates to grow those healthy bacteria for the indigestion of food. So that is most important. But having said that, in the good old days, children were on the breast naturally, much longer than 6 months. And what we again have to religiously go back to is after 6 months, at least after 2 years, it's food with breast milk and implanting the thoughts of diversity. Not only giving the very sweet fruit, for instance, but the underutilized fruits that we don't talk about, which has marvelous fiber, that would really improve gut health. Then by the age of 1 year, when children are supposed to be fully on a family food plate, to have a repertoire of about 20 to 25 vegetables and yams, in their mind. So I take up the challenge that Arya Seela posed, because I come from, a history of international agencies. But one of the things that I have done personally is to take a step back from, food aid and actually use resources to promote good old natural food. And it has to be done by age 5. And there is a saying that before you actually can think, your mouth has to be used to a diverse diet. Now, I also come, in my voluntary, aspect from the Sri Lanka Girl Guides Association, where we have children coming in from 5 years and all the way up to young women of 22 years. Now, one of the things we have said at the Girl Guide headquarters is no mega bottles, no plastic, and you have to have a fruit juice every day, preferably underutilized fruit. Now, when we give this to our girl guides who come in for service, they come and help us, it's amazing that many of them, for example, don't want to drink Diul, wood apple. Oh, this has a very funny taste. So we have actually put our caretaker in the building to observe that the children who are given the juice actually consume it. So this actually is a history of not programming to do what Andy and Shanna and Arya Seela said. So I think going back to our roots, maybe in a modified form for convenience, but it is a must. And the bounty of our country has to be illustrated in dietary diversity. We are having the food-based dietary guidelines being produced by the Ministry of Health, and it will be out, the revised guidelines, in the month of October, which is considered Nutrition Month. And there you would see a lot of good things, eating as much color as you can on your plate, eating as much as possible food cooked at home, and eating those wonderful pulses. Sorry to say, we are again bogged down with Mysore dal, paripu, if I may say. And we have cowpea, but we don't have enough green gram produced. Now again in line with Arya Seela, why are we not producing? We don't produce on a plan of requirement. And again we have, the nutritionists from the Nutrition Society have proposed to the government of Sri Lanka to have a 10-year plan for our own food security and food sovereignty. Plan what each human being needs, and we have 21 million population. With migration and increase in population, we can calculate. So if we are only growing cowpea and only 10% of green gram, how can we ask somebody out there to eat mung atta in the morning? We have over 250 varieties of green leaves, and we are eating only 5, sometimes which are chemically driven. So I think I will stop there.
What have you all got to say about this? Which
I have a question.
can
So in terms
educate
of,
everybody.
yeah, I have a question actually. In terms of, we talk about eating what's available in your environment. Do you think someone growing up overseas will be accustomed to the same? So I'm Sri Lankan. I was born and raised in Dubai. Should I be eating what's in the environment I grew up in? What's in the environment I grew up in, or where my parents are from? Does that
Actually,
make
it
sense?
is-
It's
No,
like,
I think I have
Yeah,
the
go
answer for
on,
it.
go on.
Yes, you should be consuming wherever you were born.
Okay.
In that environment.
Okay.
It's not me. Lord Buddha has said the grains that grow in that area. I will explain it. Visakha will know. Carbohydrate, the wheat has so much. When you get a slice of bread on your tongue, sugar starts absorbing onto your body. But rice, it doesn't. You have to go down. Enzymes have to work, and then get the intestines will absorb. But in London or in a cold country, you get sugar going onto your blood system immediately, instantly, and that type of food is not required in a country like this. We are 35 degrees here. You know, we have to learn that why are we, when if you're born in Europe or even in China or Japan, you have to eat that high energy food. And Japan is a total importer of butter, and I'm trying to export butter to them because they need it. But I don't need it. If I eat it, I will have to do a bypass for me. So we don't have to do that. So we'll sell it to them and earn money. And they are buying cars from us. Don't buy anything from us. We are buying cars from them, motor bicycles, everything. Trade balance, they should take our butter. I have told the government, foreign ministry, find a buyer. I am giving you the quantity, whatever that you need. So that is, the economy is being balanced that way. I mean, that's why I said, with all due respect, when we're young, the adults, we have seen this. We have seen a gallon of petrol when I was going to school was 89 cents. 89 cents in Sri Lankan cents. So that is what the dollar was. That is where we should be taking this country. Right, and then because we never spend $1 on purchasing it. This is not producing oil. So the British Petroleum, Shell, Caltex, when they come from Gaul down to Colombo, you see petrol sheds of various companies, and they imported, and they paid government taxes. They paid EPF, ETF to employees. And then finally, after company profit, they paid taxes to the country, and then we were rich. And then in nationalization, we took over oil companies. We had to find the money to buy oil, and there we became poor. So, and Singapore, I must also say in this panel, we bought in Singapore. Singapore was never there. Even 1977, there were only 2 buildings in Singapore when I went. Then they came and said, Lee Kuan Yew said that we make something like Sri Lanka. They went beyond that because they shifted all the oil companies to Singapore. And then today we are bringing in oil from there.
Yeah, talking about oil and Andy growing up in oil country, I think your original question as to whether you should be given, but today it's an international trading place, so the food of your origins are really available, or even it can be grown in a flower pot, as we said. I spent a few months last year in Laos, and I actually took the mukunuanna and all the wonderful food that we have in a suitcase to Laos, because many of the foods, of course, we also find there. But my colleague in the office, she took the mukunuanna that I took and planted it in her garden, and now she has got bushes of mukunuanna, and she's actually eating it. So I think we should be sticking to the food of our forefathers to the extent possible. And today, even baby food, complementary food, the West has found that rice is so superior to wheat, and most of the ready-made food is rice based because it is the most digestible. So I think you asked a very good question.
It's interesting because you're programmed to eat something from when you're a kid, right? From when you're a baby, and so that's not going to change just because you move locations, right? And so I guess you're going to have to stick to what you grew up eating, right?
Exactly,
So it's
the programming, early age programming is very important.
And so if that's what you're eating, moving, it might be an issue eating what's locally available.
On that note, we've got to stop for another commercial break. We'll see you soon. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to TalkWalk. Thank you for your patience. As mothers, I think we have to set an example to our kids. When they're very small, it's very easy to do it, not when they are youngsters anymore. Because I feel that fast foods, the consumption of fast foods is more trendy because it's on the go, and your friends say, Machang, have you had that hot dog? Have you had this whatever, sausages? And which are all so bad for your health. Now, how would we inculcate the parents to start at a young age, say early childhood? How do we?
I think it's mother's responsibility. I'm telling you, all young mothers, including my wife, they had to take the children by hand to school, get out of the school, you bring the child back. Because today, see the amount of other drugs and things in town. You can't leave a child for anybody else, including to the teachers today. You can hear but asking for male boys have been sexually harassed, unheard of. I mean, this is insane. So what I'm trying to say, this must be stopped. And it's young mothers responsible today. Our age is gone, we have taken our children back and they are fine. But for the young mothers, have to make sure that your children are being looked after personally by you. And I'm saying working mothers, a professional working, I understand. A teacher working, I understand. But just because your next door neighbor carries a handbag and go to office, if the mother is going, I think that's not. I come from a large family of 11 children. Right?
A cricket team.
Right? But breastfed mother. And she lived 96 years. And previous week that I went to see her, she walked up to the table. She was standing there and serving me kiribat. I go home, they give me milk rice. So, and she was standing at 96 and serving me because she had the habit of standing and serving the children. Mother sits last on the table when everything is finished. And that was what a mother was. And the love that we had for them was there until the death. That's what I mean. If the love and care is not there for a child, and he won't give it back to you either. So, I mean, that is why you see on TV, the mother has been left on the roadside, the father has been hammered by somebody else. So all that happens. Here, we looked after our parents and we didn't have to look after them, but at least we used to go and see them regularly, see that. And then this is the love and affection. It's not Europe that we are looking at. We need to live in this country. You need the friends to talk to. You need people.
So, going back to our roots, I think these values are very important. What RUCD is talking about. Of course, today the social landscape has really changed, and I think it's the responsibility of both mother and father today, unfortunately, because of the lack of extended family, to take on this early childhood programming. And several studies have shown that if mother and father are both involved in the decision making of food and nutrition, that the family will do best. And it's a lot of interaction in the early days, where children are fed from the table, family food at the right age, where choice is offered, and at the age of 9 to 10 months they would like to take food into their hands, and it's the start of coordination, and where you start giving them food to select and eat. Of course, it's messy at the beginning, but then they really learn to choose, and if you give them healthy options, that healthy option is actually the order of the day. I think again what Arya Sila was saying, all these things that we are talking today in the modern sense of almost academically talking about it, happened quite naturally in that extended family. Unfortunately, because we have lost that social fabric, we need to kind of systematize. So it's a lot of good things, and very clearly saying no to certain foods, and the no cannot be said violently, but you have to really stick to the no. If not, children are confused. At one moment, one parent says this is good, at another moment, another parent says it's bad, and there is confusion. So, the unity among the parents, mother and father, to give the same message is very, very important. And also to make them sit in one place, or even on a mat, to have a kind of a discipline instilled, because in Sri Lanka when children don't eat, there are 2 or 3 family members and a maid walking behind the child, showing different things in the garden and trying to get them to eat. And that is not stability, really.
I think you brought up a very important key word, which is the interaction of the family unit, and making sure that wherever possible everyone sits down together at the meal table and has that meal together. Because now, leading such busy lifestyles, sometimes the children eat on their own, sometimes the father eats at a different time, sometimes the mother eats at a different time. Yes, they can be served at different times, but consuming that meal together is really important. And as studies have shown, children will look at the parents and they will mimic that. So if the parents are eating a healthy meal, the child will think, okay, so my parents are eating that.
Yes.
We are their safety net and the people who they look up to. So if they see that we are consuming healthy, nutritious meals, then they will also feel comfortable to try that.
Absolutely.
And then we can build up that whole family unit together.
Exactly.
The whole health of that family unit is important. Yes, we need to look at the future, but also the health of the mother and the father are also equally as important as well. And having that preventative medicine rather than from our nutrients, rather than waiting for ailment or a non-communicable disease to occur and then thinking, oh my goodness, what do I have to pump into my body to now create my longevity, rather than that, having a more preventative form of consumption is really important.
I think you have put it very well, Shayana, because of this interaction. You don't really need to force kids to eat.
Yeah.
Children consider meal times an absolute time of torture, because you are forced, food is forced down, then they are given water to force down the food, and food, meal times are associated with unhappiness. And we really should refrain, and in complementary feeding, responsive feeding is one of the most important aspects. Talking to the child, as you said, asking questions, replying, giving due respect to the child and not forcing. I really want to reinforce, because you see it day in, day out, even though the primary health care system of Sri Lanka is very comprehensive and the public health midwife does a lot of demonstrations and 24-hour recalls of what the child has eaten. We have gone a long way, but still parents all over, from rural to plantations to urban, the more educated, the not so educated, just force food on children, and that's a no-no.
Yeah.
And that is a cause of pediatric obesity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what they are feeding the child. They want to put food into the mouth all the time.
No, I think I'm sorry, I'm not quite agreeing that, because I have seen what it is, except for people bring in imported food and push it down your throat as bread or something else. But I'm coming from, I've been on a school where with foreigners were teaching us, and I'm coming from St. Lucius. But when we are home, the food is, everyone is running for the plate of rice. This is prepared by the mother and the servants, they eat it, and all are hungry and running. And by that time, we had a river, we go there and swim, we get young coconuts and pluck and drink and eat and everything. Still we are hungry when you come back for the food.
Yeah, but
you have to make the
rural
child
living, no?
Rural
That
living,
is
rural living, but the
Yes.
older child.
Absolutely.
No,
I'm talking about
I'm not saying that. I live in Colombo.
Yes.
Still, this morning I came with the green leaf kanji and tea. Parents have to do that. My children get it. My children now, for the Sinhalese New Year, they come and light, wear a sarong and come and light and boil the milk. I mean, if we don't do it for them, who's going to do that?
Exactly. You have to program.
mean,
What Vicky says is have the family traditions,
Yeah.
traditions of our country.
Of country,
Of
and
our
we
country.
I'm a Christian, but we still have the Sinhalese New Year and do that.
Exactly. So,
And
New Year is
Christmas we celebrate, yes. But that doesn't mean we can get uproot ourselves from our own
No, values have to remain,
that
but in a
if
modern
there are no
form.
values,
Yeah.
no economy, no country,
Yes.
and no happy family. So we have to push ourselves. Maybe difficult. We have to do that because it's our adults. We have to do that. And why I'm coming and talking about this,
Yes.
we need to come at working time. But still, if we don't, as adults, won't tell our young children like him, it's our
Exactly.
our fault.
I mean, at no time
we
can
must
you
give the
denigrate.
opportunity. Must answer the question that he's asking.
At no time should we denigrate values, traditions. Those have to be there. But we, at the, when times change, it's very difficult to transplant it as it is. So I think everything that you say goes, but we have to really evolve with the times, but let it remain.
Yeah. Also looking at our lifestyles
Yes.
now, as opposed to sort of a few years back, the sedentary lifestyle that so many children and families lead now. I mean, Andy will probably be able to add on this as well, but like it or not, our lifestyles are becoming more and more sedentary and more hustle and bustle pace. So yes, the children would come home then and they would be hungry. That's because they've been doing sport, they've been running, they've been playing, they've been doing all these different activities. And if we look at the average child now, the amount of activities that they do in comparison, it would be considerably less. So that hunger factor is also subdued a bit. So again, we need to address that point, limiting things like screen time during meal time, which I know is
And
easier said
relieving
than
stress.
done.
I'm wearing this wristband.
Yes.
It's one of our Girl Guide projects in the southern province to relieve stress. What you
Yes,
said,
yes.
they go through so much.
Yes, yeah. So it's a whole numerous amount of different factors that we have to address.
Exactly.
As a whole, and having discussions like this is a great starting point where people can see, okay, yes, that's a weakness in my family. From next week, I'm going to focus on that a little bit more and take baby steps to improve the whole family unit.
And I would really like to get back to Andy because 1.5 hours a day at least for children,
Yeah.
activity. Andy, how do we get it at the macro level, all round?
So one of the things, food quality is obviously very important, but obviously if you have an issue with gaining weight, you're eating too much, right? There's an energy balance issue. And if there's an energy balance issue, you have to look at the activity of the kids, right? Sport, and then their non-exercise activity. What are they doing? What does their lifestyle look like? Are they sitting down on the chair all day? Are they doing nothing other than, so they play their sport and they come home and they sit on the chair, on the couch for 8 hours? You got to look at these things because you could be eating healthy foods and you could be getting unhealthy because you're eating too much of it, right? And so quality and quantity have to be matched, because if there is a mismatch there, you're going to get obese. Like you can eat you can eat fruit all day and gain weight, right?
Exactly.
And I also think a lot of diet is connected with the social structure, and sometimes it can get irrational because of this, because we're so connected to what has been done in tradition, and we're not willing to look outside of our traditions to see what can work for us and what are the opportunities to get healthier. And one of the things that there's a growing massive body of research coming out about red meat and organ meat, and how it's some of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet, but something like that wouldn't resonate in Sri Lanka, right? Because of our traditions, because of the social structure of how our society has grown over the last decades and centuries. And so if we're not willing to look at other ways and to do things that may benefit us, and we're being very biased with our options, I don't think it's going to work out very well. There has to be some sort of openness to different ideas, different food choices, different food sources that maybe we didn't traditionally eat, and that we should maybe take a look at and say, well, let's give this a shot, see if this works. Does this help our health or does it not? If it helps, good, we keep it. If it doesn't, we put it away. But we have to start growing that aspect of different foods and energy expenditure, and really looking at the whole thing and trying to get the solution, and not the solution that we're biased towards, which is our traditions. We're all biased towards tradition.
I absolutely agree with you, and there's a huge amount of harm done by going overboard, sorry to say, on vegetarianism, and entering schools and asking children to refrain from eating flesh food. We know that flesh food is the most superior iron, and taking a leaf from again Arya Seeler's book, in the good old days it was not merely vegetarianism. People did eat their fish, small fish, large fish, a good component of meat. If you actually examine the diet of the kings, the ancient kings of Sri Lanka, what a repertoire. And even their followers, their disciples, the villagers. I mean, we are a hunter-gatherer society originally, and hunting was for protein, and healthy and fresh proteins. So we cannot get away with this idea of going overboard on, how do I say it, religious fervor and extremism at the expense of good old practices as hunter-gatherers as well as evidence. We have to go by the evidence.
No, with what Vitaka says is true. What I am trying to say is this is an island.
Yes.
And we were not flying out for thousands of years. And see the ancient ruins that we have, where the Europeans have come and damaged. And we have done all that without a crane, without everything. So our people were strong and energetic. And the creations that they have done, and the education, English language is for how many, Robin Hood's age, no? What are we talking about? And that's how old the history is. We have written history of thousands of years. So I'm not speaking in English. If you are saying that, we are the people who spoke English first, because they landed in Badikama, and the church was built there. English education was done there. St. Thomas's College came 25 years later. Trinity came another 25 years later.
After Christ Church.
After Badhyama Christ Church.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say, yes, that's what it is.
Yes.
So if anyone learned English first, it was us. And we took the teachers to Mount Lavinia, then from there to Trinity. It's not Sanghakar who speaks English.
Exactly.
It's every day people were used to read the Daily News and talk to, because they studied in English English language. The only medium of education was English.
Yeah, and I think what Andy says is, pretty much, we have to mix and match. Go out of the box, take what's good, and I think, traditionally we have done that. Throw out the bad and, add the good that we have, indigenous, knowledge, and combine the two.
Yeah, Mr. What you're saying,
Yes.
why am I a Christian? Yes. We were Buddhists. This is a Buddhist country. The British have invaded, and we came in here, religion came with a package. So that is how we became Christians. So therefore, whatever that came here, you can't be taking it as right.
Yeah.
Along with that, what is this prop-up toaster and bread? Bread hasn't got to be, what is Jesus Christ bread? Is you tear it and eat. What is the church?
Unleavened bread.
It's a flat thing.
Yeah.
Why is this bread square? Because they need to poke it in the proper toaster to prop it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so
if
true.
you take, if you're 2 degrees temperature, and
So
then you had to, before the butter melts, you have to put it on both sides.
Exactly.
And that's you keep it on the table, prop up toaster, and we kept there and eat, because by that time the butter is gone. So this is for somebody else.
Yeah.
My fathers, we Asians, had food, warm food. Only a beggar didn't have food, warm food. So basically, for us to say, I'm not saying my children are also doing that. They also go in the night and do all sorts of things.
Yeah, but mix and match. I think that's important.
But to a certain limit, a certain limit. Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm old school guy. My children were used to go out they start going out at 10 o'clock in the night, being boys. I mean, no young mother will control it, they will go. Yeah, but then I was used to sleep without sleeping, wait until they come to open the door. Even today, these days, today are not there, but we open the door because we are still sensitive. If something happens, now they don't drive their car, they get into a hired vehicle, book the car and come in that. Okay, that's fine. At least we know that he won't make the accident. So basically, we can take that. But you can't take lock, stock and barrel.
Absolutely. Now that is
we
what
have
we
to
are
shed
saying.
whatever
Take
that
the good,
we
throw out the bad,
mean-
but we need to evolve.
Just for a minute, we have to go in for a short commercial break. We'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back to TalkWalk. It's question time now. Poverty and nutrition. Is there something called that? Or is there any solutions for this with poverty and nutrition? Anybody can pick up the question.
Well, there's quite a lot of work done academically, especially on poverty and nutrition, and there is a relationship between affordability of food and child stunting or shortness. Now, it could be argued that height is actually relative between races and genetics. I mean, there are short people, taller people, people who have done very well though they are short, but below the age of 5, children grow exactly the same regardless of genetics. So they say, but I think we need to test this, and to see whether there is a paradigm shift. We need to do our own country studies, long term on child growth. That is, you start from, newborn and you follow the same group or the same cohort of children to see and to test, this finding. Because child growth charts or the graph on which their growth is drawn, which is given to every child, from the clinic for children and from the hospitals that they are born, goes on a global, sample of children of all ethnicities and races. And that is where we, come upon the girls' growth chart and the boys' growth chart. And that they grow exactly the same is a finding after doing studies on about 100,000 children. So to get back, to the question, yes, even though you are poor, as we have discussed, there can be lots of behaviors that are inculcated to withstand one's low income and to eat right. And we were discussing this. One can grow food in a pot, on a balcony, in a very small area of land, in urban areas. Now, Cuba, for instance, has done very well in the urban home garden. In fact, everyone grows some food. Cuba also has done very well by having farmers' cooperatives. And they are not rich, nor are they poor, because poverty can mean many things. Is it the poverty of income? Is it the poverty of services? Is it the poverty of care? So, to answer, Minoli, I think poverty can be kind of, mitigated with the right kind of practices. If you take the trouble to, actually grow some food or to select the right kind of food. The most expensive food is not the best. Now, let us take an example from pumpkin, vataka. People, especially in Sri Lanka, you associate the pumpkin with either death ceremonies or with the poor. But of course, that is changing owing to the excellent work done by various stakeholders on nutrition to say that it's one of the superfoods. It has the right kind of fiber, the energy, the vitamins, especially vitamin A, so many, and pumpkin seed is so valuable. So, these kinds of behavior change communication programs can actually mitigate the impact of poverty. But having said that, if you are very, very poor and living on less than $1 a day, where we, you know, where we it's a poverty cut-off ratio, then with increasingly limitations on the land and the space and the lifestyle, poverty does play a role, and that has been established, especially as I said, in long-term growth of children. Because short-term growth is whether you are fat or thin, which is called wasting. But long-term is where, you know, you are continuously thinner or lower weight for your age, and that translates into a deficit in height. So, and also it has been, you know, without any experimentation or any major research, it has been shown that as countries grow richer, you know, stunting reduces. However, we have the other dilemma. You are richer, you have more choices, you are eating all the unhealthy food, all the food that is unnecessary, all the food that is imported, that is really not essential at all, and you have the double burden setting up as you get. So, we have to be very careful to say, you know, what is the optimum level of income and access to resources where we can have the healthy, you know, body and the body size.
To what she says,
Yes.
I was just talking to them a little while ago. Pumpkin. When we plant it in Kotte, you get a fruit or two. When it's in dry zone, hundreds of them, especially watermelon, pumpkins of that family. Why? Dry season comes in, they don't have water. So when it's rainy in November, in dry areas, now the seed will be planted, it will grow. In Colorado, my first son, we met him, we had him there, we were there. The farmers, Halloween is a pumpkin.
Pumpkin.
And the pumpkin, the best farmer is the man who has 1.5 tons pumpkin.
Yes.
That's their staple food.
Exactly.
Every little thing is pumpkin. And their ceremonies are pumpkin. And the seeds, and that is what they are. So that's their food. And that is the carbohydrate they have.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't grow in Rockies.
Yes.
Only the creepers grow in between, and that gives you fruit and enough for the year. So that is, so whatever that grows there is not our food. I'm saying in this country, if you are in Oxford Street in London, if you get 10 Sri Lankans coming there, I can tell is coming from this coastline. If it is from Kandy, he'll be saying ter. If we come from somewhere else, when you speak the language, you can say the coastal line, fisherman or anyone, we can recognize to that extent. It doesn't happen. You go and eat banana in London and see it's clay and clay and clay. But you go and eat banana here, take it to London and eat when it's fruit. Is you can say what type of banana it is from the taste without the skin. So we are unique. The reason is that we have God given 12 hours sunlight to produce carbohydrate. We don't add anything to a milk that we make because we only standardize the fat because all the vitamins are there. Milk is milk. You don't separate it. You don't say A added, B added, C added. We don't do that. So we are coming in a country, living in a country with all that assets around. And I'm saying, why is so-called Vattak or pumpkin grows there? That's their breakfast. They eat with coconut and pumpkin as the breakfast. And that is what is needed. But we have so many other yams, like say batala, manioc, and all that is there down in south. So we can just pull it out and eat. But there, it happens during rainy season, it stores it there at a hard shell. It doesn't evaporate, so it is there. Throughout the year, you can keep it till the next rain comes in. Same with the pumpkin, when they go to look after their farm in the night, because to protect it from the elephants, they carry a watermelon and a meal packet, and then that is the water that he gets. Because the water in the small pond is with buffaloes in it and they have urine, so the clean water is only in that. Why is this kidney diseases? Because we are bringing it to Colombo 5-star hotels, the pumpkins, and all the companies are taking their beverages out there, and they're having kidney diseases we never had. At the King's time, we never had that because we had that natural given growth. If you're not going to take that and you're going to take something else, of course you have to have the consequences.
only now
of
to
it.
get back to-
Can
Yeah.
you beat a pumpkin soup?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And it's so versatile. You can make
Gorgeous.
so many things. Pumpkin
Absolutely.
cake, flour,
Yes.
even in the Western
No,
sense or our Oriental sense.
Visakha, I bought a
Yes,
Cuban ship.
yes.
The ship's crew invited me for lunch as the owner.
Yes.
The whole table, the big ship, it was they have prepared different kind of dishes only with manioc. That's their staple
Exactly.
food. So manioc is the staple food. It's not rice. It's not bread.
if you
It's not
ask a child today, have you eaten manioc? Oh, what is that?
yeah. No, I'm saying that. I mean, they're giving king's food to the owner of the ship,
Yeah.
and he's giving manioc.
And also,
and
the
very nicely decorated.
Yeah, having a limited income, what are you buying? Now, I observe in the area that I live in Colombo, what they buy. Coming to the small, wayside shop.
On that same question,
Yes,
we are concerned how the multinational companies
yes.
use the idols, to sell these foods at a huge cost. And this impacts the listeners on print media and on electronic media. Well, you become like a lion if you eat this. You become pretty if you eat this. Or if you drink this, you get this beautiful height.
Claims.
Yes.
Let me say something for that. I have knocked down the biggest ones. No one has knocked down anyone on this dairy industry. I have knocked down no TVs in this, nothing now. Shut them down completely because we produce it here. And we know it's clean and you have a few number of people, no cows. India is the largest producer of milk, cow milk.
Yeah.
And other countries are so small, they don't have cows or the milk. But they import lactose from America and palm oil from New Zealand, from Malaysia, and put together and call it milk. And then you sell it. And then sell to all of us. And China, Russia. How can you do that with a small country?
The problem is that we do not gather the evidence,
Yeah.
the composition. Now, what Arya Sila said about the composition of milk powder or even fresh milk, which is reconstituted powder's milk, sometime. But where do we gather the evidence? Now, trans fat.
Yeah.
Now, we all know that trans fat is bad. But how many laboratories have we accredited? Unfortunately, we are caught in the middle of legal issues. You need to establish. And I don't want to mention the name. Occasionally, even I like to drink it. But what about the colas? If it's really, really dangerous, why don't we get it banned? Now, this is a question that I have asked my own institution, international agency. Why don't you gather the evidence to ban it? It's the same with COVID. We all talk about a vaccine that is to come, and more vaccines are given to children, but no one talks about food, nutrition and immunity. That is the root
I'm
cause.
afraid on that note, we've got to wrap up this
Yes.
episode. Up until next week, Wednesday, 6:30 on our television. Please tune in to TalkWalk. Thank you for watching. This is Minoli de Almeida signing off. Remember, health is wealth. Eat the right food, exercise regularly.